Good afternoon. My name is Joyce Hunter, and I am the Executive Director for the Institute for Critical Infrastructure Technology, known as ICIT. We are a cybersecurity think tank, and welcome to the Level Up Using Gamification to Prepare Tomorrow's Workforce. We'd like to first of all thank our sponsor, DLT, for without our sponsors, we would be unable to deliver these objective, nonpartisan, and vendor-agnostic research to cultivate a cybersecurity renaissance that will improve the resiliency of our nation's 16 critical infrastructure sectors, defend our democratic institutions, and empower generations of cybersecurity leaders. In this briefing, cybersecurity gamification experts will discuss their successes in using this tool to combat the talent and knowledge shortages and their recommendation for leaders looking to maximize this powerful method of learning. At the end of this briefing, you will have a strategic understanding of how you can leverage gamification in your current and future workforce. Our esteemed guests will introduce themselves. However, I will provide a brief introduction of our moderator and sponsor, Don McLean. Don serves as the Chief Cybersecurity Technologist at DLT. Don is responsible for formulating and executing DLT's cybersecurity portfolio strategy. Within the cybersecurity community, Don is a leader and mentor, frequently participating in programs such as the DOS Cyber Online Learning Sessions and serving as an active member of the Cloud Security Alliance. Don, take it away.
Thank you, Joyce. I'm really thrilled to be doing this session today. I have two great co-panelists with me today. I'm the moderator, so I guess my job is to make sure that nothing immoderate takes place at this event. Just full disclosure, Brett's DLT is a TD SYNNEX company. I am with DLT. Brett is with TD SYNNEX, and so we are essentially in the same company, but ICIT rules do mandate that an adult be present at every one of these webinars. So we also invited Simon Pavitt from across the pond to serve in that capacity. So I'm going to kick it off by allowing Brett to go ahead and introduce himself real quick, and then Simon, and then we'll get started. Brett, take it away.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Brett Scott, and I'm a director level here at TD SYNNEX. I oversee the Tech Data Cyber Range.
Sure. And Simon?
It's very concise, Brett. I'm the head of the Cyber Awareness Behaviours and Culture team for the UK Ministry of Defence. I'll take a leaf from your book, Brett. We'll keep it nice and tight.
Yeah, most of these introductions are more to impress rather than inform, so I appreciate the concise self-intros. So we're here today to talk about gamification, and I think sometimes that term can connote a sense of frivolity or triviality, but I think that it's a much more important aspect of gamification than meets the eye. Militaries across the world conduct, war games, quote unquote. They are hardly fun and games; they're very serious endeavors. So, and there are two aspects of this that I hope we can cover today. One is how we can use gamification to enhance the general cybersecurity awareness in the workforce at large, and also to make cybersecurity a more attractive field of endeavor for young, technically talented people, and ultimately to make this a more positive message about cybersecurity, that we can win this war that's taking place constantly. So Simon, I know that you've done some really incredible stuff around gamification. If you could just give us a quick overview of how you view gamification and why you are so heavily involved in it, that would be great.
Sure. So I'm going to start with a nice big grand statement. I think there are two forces behind almost every action. Everything that we do as people, we interpret the world around us as either a story or a game. So given that when you go shopping, when you go out to do anything, you're probably interpreting either as a narrative that you're going to achieve with a beginning, middle, and end, or something that you're going to try and beat someone else to, or collaboratively work together. Those are the game sets. Because I view the world that way, and I know that that's not necessarily everyone's picture, what I want to do is capitalize on both of those things, because narratives fit into games and games fit into narratives. So by using those two fundamental forces, what we can do is attract people to view a certain set of behaviors in a different way. And exactly as Don said, my background's in the military, so I spent a lot of time trying to explain to people that what I did for a living was running around and pretending to be a soldier. Even though I was one, I wasn't deployed in a military context. I wasn't actually going out and fighting a war for the most part. What I was doing was running around Salisbury Plains in the wet, pretending to shoot real rounds, which is nothing more than a game. And whilst you said it's very serious, I have first-hand account to know that actually it's not that serious. It really is designed to be entertaining, and it enthuses you to take part in those actions. And when you contextualize the actions that's really being expected of someone, that the game that we're playing, this narrative that we're driving while we're running around, screaming at one another and trying to load rounds, that's really serious. The real thing that we're going to be doing, the real version of this behavior, is actually quite scary, is quite terrifying. So how are we having fun? How are we enjoying that narrative when the real context, the real thing we could be doing is quite concerning? What I'm trying to do in my work as the head of the cyber awareness behaviors and culture team in MOD is use that same thing. Is trying to build this level of engaging with the story of cyber, the game of cyber, in a way that doesn't have as much real fear, much real pressure to do the right thing. You can engage with it in a way that makes sense, that allows you to make the errors, that allows you to play with that environment and still have a successful outcome. To do that, we've done a load of different things. We've applied, we built an escape room. We'll talk about some of these later on. We built an escape room. We designed a viral media campaign that we had people hiding things. We've dished out a card game. We've got a physical board game. So just to give you a quick précis, and we'll dive into those when you want to come across them. But gamification is very much at the center of what I'm trying to do to change secure behaviors.
That's great. And Brett, what's your take on gamification, and just maybe a little bit of philosophy, and maybe just give us a little teaser on what your involvement in gamification has been.
Yep, awesome. So, there's an awful lot of stuff going on in the world recently. We've all awakened to see some news. Imagine if you are a cyber warrior, right? And your job is to defend your country against, vicious attacks intending to cause harm to your country. That's obviously a very serious battle. But how do you do that well, and how do you do it effectively? Unfortunately, there have not been a lot of training grounds for people to rehearse these battles, to learn from their mistakes, to make them, and to learn from those mistakes. Because if you make a mistake in real conflict, obviously there are terrible consequences. So gamification is a wonderful tool to help people to build those memories and to build their instincts on what they should be doing when the time comes for them to do it. And if you are working for a government or military, now is that time and you're doing it. And so that's the kind of thing that Simon has really done a fantastic job of creating those environments which help people to connect with the reality. And many of you have probably seen a data center, or you've been by your computers, or you've been by some kind of computing network. Now, I love giving people tours of the Tech Data Cyber Range, and I say, look at all these great computers. Aren't they nice? And they're blinking, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. And I say, okay, well, there are about 85,000 unique attackers that are attacking us right now. So which one of those blinks is bad? And that's the thing, is that computers don't cry out and say, help, help, I'm under attack. And so because you have a silent victim, the idea of gamification helps you to connect with, well, even though I'm standing next to all of these computers and they're blinking at me, there is something going on that I need to do something about because it's bad. They're intending to cause us harm. So gamification helps to make real the real consequences of cyber conflict and cyber risk. And so it is a wonderful tool to help people to connect with something that's happening all around them, but they haven't and cannot see.
Yeah, I was, as you were speaking about the memories, the muscle memory, quote, so to speak, I thought back, there's a famous photograph of a Secret Service agent who was guarding President Reagan at the time of his assassination attempt, or the assassination attempt against him. And this agent is standing, making himself as big as possible directly in front of the president so that he would become the target rather than the president, which is an incredibly selfless thing to do. I don't think I would do that. But a lot of people assumed that he just thought of that on the spot, but in reality, they rehearse that over and over and over again, because that is not the instinct. The instinct is to run away from danger. So you have to really, really train hard to learn how to respond effectively and instantaneously in an emergency situation. So I think the training ground that you have developed, Brett, with the cyber range is analogous to that. It's really important to know how to respond, and you can't be thinking of how to respond on the spot. Simon, you mentioned your escape room, and I'm fascinated by this. So I would love it if you could tell us a little bit about your escape room and the experiences and the successes that you've had with that over in merry old England.
Yeah, and I should say that I'm very proud of this piece of work. It went very, very well. So I'm quite enthusiastic. You might have to rein me in. But before I do that, I just want to touch on the point you said about muscle memory. And I agree with you entirely. What we need is a group of very well-drilled people to respond in certain situations, especially in that defender's role. But boredom sets in. If we get anyone to do any repetitive tasks for any amount of time, people switch off. Of course they do. You do when you drive in. If you drive a long way, often you're gone, you're thinking about other stuff, and then all of a sudden you'll turn up at your end. And that's exactly the situation we need to avoid for someone who's trying to defend a network. And when I refer to someone who's defending a network, I'm not just talking about those who are specifically employed to do so. For my organization, I want chefs to be able to identify when their systems are playing up. I want drivers to know when they enter their taco data into the MT computer that didn't feel right. What do I do in that situation? So all of my organization is acting as a defender. And the line between that muscle memory and getting someone to engage on a positive way is motivation. Why should I engage in a repetitive behavior? And I wonder if anyone's played something like Guitar Hero, or if not Guitar Hero, we can cycle back through a few here. Tetris. If you've played Tetris, Tetris is probably the single most boring game if you explain it from a behavioral perspective. You have 4 buttons, 4 things you can do, and you play them repetitively over and over and over and over again. I just get you to keep pressing buttons. But because you're engaging with the buttons in a way that challenges you and applies things like pointsification and applies things like an increased pace and narrative tension, and yeah, narrative tension, all it is bricks falling from the sky. How can there be a story? But there is. You're engrossed in that. And I can remember as a kid playing Tetris for hours on end because I was so attracted to this thing. So motivation is the gap there. Why did I take part? And that's what I try to apply to the escape room. That's the idea behind this. I want to take people into a context that would be usually very familiar to them, and then change the way they interpret that by engaging their motivation. So the escape room, what did we do? We first off did a large marketing push that we, Defence, a very serious government organization, is going to travel around the country and set up a physical escape room in a number of different sites. We picked more remotely, which was horrible because it was a lot of driving. But anyway, this physical escape room, when we traveled, we set it up, we built the room, and inside the room was your standard soldiers accommodation, should say soldiers, sailor or Air Force personnel, because I'm biased towards anyone in green. But the room itself, as you walk in, is a standard single living accommodation. You have a single bed, a TV, a wardrobe, a desk, and then because we're a bit flash, we've got a separate bathroom and ensuite because we like to look after our military personnel. Yeah. But the context itself is incredibly mundane. It's something that every person has an experience with. And what we're trying to do is get people to engage in the mundane activity of securing this incredibly boring neutral space. So we build the escape room. We tell them, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to put you in the boring place, but we're going to lock you in. Something's going to go wrong, and you're going to have to find your way out. So as they go into the room, the first thing that happens is they wander around awkwardly, having absolutely no clue what to do. They just kind of stare at things and poke things. And if you've ever played an escape room, there's always this couple of minutes in the front where you're kind of in this brand new world and you don't quite understand what's going on. But eventually they come across an envelope. And on the front of the envelope, it says, "Please plug me in." and inside you find a USB stick. So what do? The very first thing is they go, oh, you can get malware on USB sticks. That's terrible. We can't do that. And then immediately plug it in. They're bought into the story. So they plug it in because they see it as a pseudo-narrative. They see it as something that isn't real. It means that they're safe to push the boundaries, to make the error, because what's the worst that could happen here? Everything falls down around you. It's fine. So they plugged it in, and guess what happens? We hack the room, and we compromise every Internet of Thing device you can imagine. We changed the temperature, turned the lights off, started playing around with the fish tank. We even had a flashing toilet. Yes, you can get a smart toilet. A wildly expensive thing, though. I don't know why anyone would have one of those. But we compromised everything and communicated through their screen, talking to them about what we were doing. To resolve the room, they had to go around and identify the Internet of Thing device that we'd compromised and find a way to secure it. And this ranging from unplugging it, very nice and simple, changing the password, entering various codes. For example, to reset the smart toilet, you have to flush in a certain sequence. That's true. To things like finding the router, changing the passwords on the router, locking the attack out. The game lasts around 45 minutes. Players go in, they discover all of these things, and they leave. But what never happened was we never told them why they were doing this. We said, we're the Cyber Confident team. That's our kind of public-facing brand. We're the Cyber Confident team, and all we want you to do is go in and have a great time. Just want you to have fun. Take 45 minutes out of doing your regular job and play in our escape room. And you can see this look of awkwardness. Oh, are there strings attached? Well, surely you want me to actually do something, right? You don't want me to come and play a game while you pay me for it, right? They go around, they play that story, and eventually they break out of the room. And what I will say is, unlike a game, if anyone's played escape rooms before, sometimes they're quite rigid, they're steered, they're designed to be competition, so it's a rigorous and fair test. I don't believe in fair. What I want to see is that every single person wins that room under their own caveats, their own experience. So that doesn't necessarily mean getting out of 45 minutes. It means having a good story, a good engagement with the hacker as they tease them over the computer. Or it could mean feeling that sense of winning over this certain puzzle that they really struggled over and they really fought through. And then they have that moment where they win and it feels great. It hijacks that sense of accomplishment and attaches it to securing something inside their room. When they leave, we say one really simple thing. How did you think that went? Okay, so I've not taught them anything. And they instantly reel off every learning objective you could want from that group. They say, oh, well, I'm not going to plug USB sticks anymore. Didn't know you could do that. Oh, I never realized that my voice assistant could listen to me, because we recorded it and played it back to them. And they fed all this fantastic information about what they had experienced and what they had learned. If we'd have done exactly the same thing with the same learning objectives in a classroom setting or in a remote learning setting, we would never have reinforced those points. But just to add a little bit, when we went back 6 weeks later, and we've actually done a rewash up now 6 months later, people are retaining that information. They're engaging with it. They're recalling their experiences in the room and going, do you remember when that happened? Yes, I do. I engineered it. But more importantly, I don't care that I remember. They remember. They've taken something away from that.
Yeah, I think that's really critical, that critical aspect of how humans work. You know, our emotional memories are strong and powerful and permanent. You know, Toni Morrison famously said, no one remembers what I say, they just remember how I make them feel. And so if you can remember, you know, people think, well, this is a game, so what? It should be silly. It should, you know, why should it be fun? Well, the reason it should be fun is precisely what you just said. That's how people remember. They feel engaged, they have fun, they enjoy it. And that emotional memory means that that knowledge doesn't leave when they leave the escape room, it sticks with them. You know, in a much smaller context, I did something similar long ago with a simple board game concept, where we pitted two teams against each other to see who could get back online in a disaster recovery scenario. And you know, it's the kind of thing that we used to do with a desktop exercise. People would drag themselves in, sit through the exercise, fall asleep, drag themselves out, and remember absolutely nothing when they were done. But when we turned it into a board game, same material, same learning objective, same idea, the losing team was upset that they lost and they wanted to do it again. That's like saying, let's do that fire drill all over again. That was fun. You know, no one does that, right? So I mean, I think it's really essential to create that sense of positivity around cybersecurity in general, for the simple fact that A, everyone can do it, and B, more importantly, it improves the retention. So I know that Brett has done some really cool stuff in his cyber range too, though. So I'm gonna back off, stop being immoderate as the moderator, and let Brett speak to his cyber range and some of the objectives and the success that he's had with that as well. Is he frozen? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well.
Should we cover
Brett?
for a minute? I know what you mean about the positive sentiment aspect. I really want to capitalize on that winning experience.
Right.
Watch out for Brett to move.
I assume that he's going to probably get back on, so we will just we'll carry on. I mean, do you now? One of the things that crossed my mind too that we might want to clarify for the audience. I think Brett will be back shortly. One of the things we want to clarify for the audience, Simon, is that your participants in the escape room were not cybersecurity professionals or even IT folks, right? I mean, these were ordinary, just regular people, correct?
Yeah. The sites that we covered ranged from the infantry training school, and I have a lot of love for my infantry brothers, but bless them, they're not the most bright. Right through to submariners, up to project leads. We managed to get the permanent secretary for the defense in the room. We got the chief information officer in. So we had this full spectrum. We did absolutely get cybersecurity professionals coming through the room. They weren't my target audience. They're not the ones I really want to influence at that moment. The ones I wanted to influence were those that sit on the perimeters, those that can act as that human firewall that we're really interested in.
Right. So, go ahead.
No, go for it. Go on.
No, the other thing that struck me is that these are not, like I said, cybersecurity people per se, but rather the general well, in your case, the general workforce, people that weren't trained in this. But also, I was wondering, why did you go to the trouble of making a physical escape room? If I understand correctly, this thing is portable. You can drive it around. So not only did you have to go to the trouble of making an escape room, which is a lot of work, but you also had to find a way to get it on a what you would call a lorry and we call a truck, and carry it around. Why not do a virtual event? Why not just do it online and increase the reach?
Yes, and we absolutely could have done that. We elected to do something physical because a big portion of our target audience, those that we want to engage with, have this really awkward construction of what cybersecurity is. That cyber is something for this specific group over here. It's for professionals. It's for people who do the action of cyber. So what do? We need to break down some of those connections, and the biggest connection is that cyber is computers. There is an equivalency with cyber and computers. What we wanted to do is get people to use things that they know and understand and can engage with comfortably, like, well, as I said, the toilet. The toilet's a great example of exactly why we wanted to do this, because you've got people that are engaging with the concept of cyber in a way that they wouldn't have done before. If we're to put this on a computer, even though they're going to be interacting with the same story, they're going to interpret it through the lens of a computer. It's still a computer-based thing. Yes.
So do you think that it's also possible to take people that may not be cybersecurity people per se and pique their interest through one of these games or or an escape room in your case, and lure them into the deep, dark, and sordid world of being a cybersecurity professional?
Oh, well, definitely. Absolutely. I'm not 100% convinced that the human touch was a big driving factor there, but I do think giving the sense that this was something that broke people out of their norm, helped them engage with the concept a little bit more. And we were finding that people were coming out of there talking about the escape room. What does it mean then to do cyber? I never realized this was part of cyber, and expanding out the ideas. But what I would talk about is the thing that sat on top of the escape room. The escape room is part of a much, much bigger initiative. Cyber Awareness Month, October every year, we wanted to capitalize on a different way. And we have a narrative tool called the Threat Avatar The threat avatar is about trying to balance the sense of doing the right thing or doing a secure thing and doing something that is threat motivated or based in fear. Because those two things are kind of opposing forces. If we terrify someone and get them to do some action, but we don't tell them how to fix it, then we breed fatalism. Why should I bother doing anything if it's not going to make any difference anyway? And if we do it the other way around and we put loads of controls on people and need you to change your password 3 times every week, and they go, why? And I say, because it's policy. Because you have to do it. It's the rules. People look at me blankly, ignore me, and find ways to do workarounds. So what have we got to do? We've got to strike that balance. We've got to find a way to even the seesaw. So how do we do that? Well, we can't use a real threat. We can't say that this specific threat actor, is out there and doing these horrible things, because we can't prove the other side of the equation. So what we did was we built a bad guy. We started from the ground up and created an organization called the Ministry of Defiance. It's incredibly cheesy, I know, but the Ministry of Defiance was a hacktivist organization, completely fictional, that carried out loads of different attacks. And of course, the attacks themselves weren't real. They were fictionalized or they were simulated. Once we'd run these different attacks, the threat avatar gives us a tool that a real threat or a real case study doesn't, is you get to examine it live, face to face, as things are happening. It was the Ministry of Defiance that compromised the escape room. When you go in, you get hacked by the Ministry of Defiance. And we carry this narrative across a lot of different things, a lot of different tools. We even published a magazine, not that I'm prepared, but called Revolt. And the Revolt magazine is written by the Ministry of Defiance. It tells you how to do things like steal a password. It tells you how to stalk someone on social media, all in a very careful way, so we're not revealing too much information. But the reason why I wanted to highlight this is the story side of the game, and the story side of any game is so incredibly important. That was what was driving people to engage with potential careers in cyber. Having read this magazine and kind of engaged with the concepts of penetration testing, but through the lens of an adversary, people were saying, oh, wouldn't it be great to do this as a job? And you can go, you can do this as a job. This is a job. In fact, speak to my friends in the signals regiment, because they do a lot of this. And it gives you so many platforms, because you've got both sides. You've got the motivation, but you've got the justification behind the motivation. This is Tetris with a story.
Tetris for the story. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, I mean, one of the dynamics that happens in the marketplace, and it's understandable, is that cybersecurity vendors, those who sell equipment and software for cybersecurity, inflate or emphasize, the fact that we are being hacked and that we are getting attacked, and that many of these attacks are successful. That is, from the attacker's perspective. And the list goes on and on. Our audience knows, all the big ones, from Stuxnet to NotPetya to Log4j to and Colonial Pipeline, SolarWinds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. And so that's useful, and it makes sense from a marketing perspective. But my worry is that there tends to be a very strong negative connotation to cybersecurity. We're always losing. We're always going to lose. We're always going to get penetrated. It doesn't matter what we do. The best we can do is to just kind of, plug the leaks after they happen, and et cetera, et cetera. And to me, this reminds me, of the worst, team sport coach in the world, going before their team and saying, hey, you know what, we're going to lose. The other team, you should see how good they are. We're never going to make it. The best we can do is not embarrass ourselves. So one of the things that I like about the gamification approach, besides what we've already discussed, is that we can create a sense of positivity around cybersecurity. It's possible to win. You can beat the Ministry of Defiance in your case.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's Brett, back from, apparently he was overtaken by the Ministry of Defiance, and has defeated them and is back online now. So
It's good to be back. I have a new horse, and one day I hope to live in a city large enough to have reliable internet.
All right, so we're just getting to the point where we decided that you're going to send us each $100,000 by Venmo. So we're looking forward to you doing that, Brett. So.
I did that for a Nigerian prince just hours ago.
So, well, but it's good to have you back, Brett. Joking aside, we were, just love to hear about a little bit more about your cyber range efforts that you've done and the success that you've had, which, may be directly involved with gamification or at least adjacent to it. So, well, tell us a little bit about the range and what you do with that and how it's worked.
Yeah, certainly. So the TD SYNNEX Cyber Range is a range backed by the National Cyber Warfare Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization, but it is the first of its kind in distribution. We are doing gamification, very similar to what Simon's doing, but we don't do it as fun as he does. He's got a way cooler thing going on than what we do. But we are giving people experiences, and I'm delighted to see the impacts of those experiences. So, for example, we just had someone who toured with us the day we opened, November of 2019. And she regaled us with everything that she experienced when she came to visit us the first time, and how she takes what she learned and she uses it in meetings over and over and over again. It constantly comes up. So as someone who gives hundreds of speeches a year, I would never have an impact like that on a person just giving them a speech. But because she had that experience, she carried that knowledge with her, and she's spreading that knowledge with others, sharing. So it is a delightfully wonderful way to improve cybersecurity. At the Tech Data Cyber Range, or now the TD SYNNEX Cyber Range, we are bringing in lots of different security vendors and technologies and what we call partners, so who are our customers. We're a distributor, so we sell to the people that sell to the people, et cetera, et cetera. And so we are impacting our vendors and our customers, and of course, by proxy, their customers, with understanding. You think of it, one of the things we say is we explain the why of cybersecurity. It's one thing to say, I have this thing and it does that, it blinks twice and it does this thing, and it doesn't mean anything to anyone. But when we say, hey, you know what, your data, we just stole your data that you were trying to protect, but when we have these other things in place, we use these techniques, these methods, and even these technologies, the bad guys can't do that. And as a direct result, they say, well, that's great. I don't want my information being stolen. I don't want my company to be ransomed. And so because of that, it helps them connect, pull the reality off of those blinking lights on the data center and turns it into, this is affecting your business, just like in the real world. You have locks on your house. Do you sit there and say, I have locks on my house because Vladimir Putin's going to come kicking in the door? You say no, because the fact is that that's what keeps my stuff safer and what keeps my family safer. People can understand the value of a lock. But when you say to you, hey, you need to protect your data, you need to have a data loss prevention tool, they go, well, okay, data loss prevention sounds awesome, but I have no idea what that means. So we are helping people to connect with that. And when they do, it is a very memorable experience, and wonderfully, they share it with others. So we are, if you want to use a hacker's term, which I like to do, we are kind of like a cybersecurity knowledge virus, and we are infecting people, and they are infecting others when they come into contact with it.
Yeah, well, we certainly have learned over the past couple of years what going viral truly means, haven't we? So, I'm also interested. You're speaking about your cyber range. We're using a singular term, but if I understand correctly, you've got more than one. Is that true, Brett?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's one corporate cyber range for the TD SYNNEX. I actually operate 8 cyber ranges in 3 different states here. States.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So Simon and I, when you were offline, we're talking a little bit about how, in addition to making increasing cybersecurity awareness in general for people that aren't necessarily in the field, we also want to create sort of a set the trap, put out some bait for people to get involved in the field. Have you seen people move into cybersecurity as a result of what they've done with the cyber range, or do you think that that's a potential use for it?
Absolutely. So we just hired a new range engineer. So that's one of the nerds that helps me run the technology in the cyber range. And he's one of my original volunteers with the foundation many, many years ago, 6-7 years ago. And he wanted to be a pilot. When he came to visit us, he's like, I'm just here to see what you nerds are up to, blah, 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 blah. I don't care about this. And he did not become a pilot. He became a cybersecurity professional because he realized what it was and how impactful and how meaningful the work was. And he also discovered that he really likes it. And that's true of all of the people that we work with, many of whom were in other lines of work or assumed that they could never be a cybersecurity nerd. And because of that, That's the thing that I think most people don't really understand about cybersecurity. Most people think it's some guy in a hoodie in a basement, waiting for mom to bring him a pizza, right? And that's really not what cybersecurity is. Cybersecurity is one of the most impactful careers you could have. It touches every part of everyone's lives. And it is also a way to have real meaning. If you, depending on what you're doing in cybersecurity, you could be saving lives, literally saving the lives of people. You could be saving a business and the livelihoods of all of those employees from going out of business. I mean, most businesses are out of business within 6 months of a significant breach. You are a defender out there protecting our way of life and people's living, and in many cases, people's actual lives. So it is, I mean, for example, WannaCry, just a few years back, it killed a lot of people because the medical equipment that was keeping them alive and protecting their health got locked up, and so they died. And so cybersecurity is one of those things that really has a meaning, and a lot of people, every job will say, oh yes, you're impacting people's lives. No, like our people have hugged people that are still here on this planet because of the work that they did, and that really makes it real. It's no longer a video game when you are receiving a hug from a person would not be here were it not for the work that you did. So it is a very, very impactful and meaningful career to be involved in.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you feel about the possibility of us, winning the war, or at least gaining the upper hand? If there's so much messaging out there. I don't know if you were online when I was saying this, but there's so much messaging out there that talks about how we're always going to get attacked, we're always going to lose. All you got to do is buy this product, and then that's the key. I mean, in a more global sense, in a more realistic sense, how do you think we can move forward to actually feel like there's a sense that we can win this war? Because it seems to me without that, no one would want to get into the field and play for the losing team all the time, right? So I mean, how do we message that in a positive way, and do you think gamification can play a role in that? And that I'll toss that one up for both of you, but I'll start with Brett since you lost some time.
Yep, no worries. So the fact is that cybersecurity, if you have the knowledge, it's easy, right? If you think about, if you can remember when you tried to ride a bike or you first learned to drive a car, if you remember those things that were seemingly foreign and complex and difficult, you were stressed out, it wasn't a comfortable environment, you probably had some blowouts with your family or friends. But the fact is that once you have the knowledge, it's easy, right? And so the difficulty that we have is there are very few people who actually know things. We have 100 stuffed shirts running out there going, oh yes, I know cybersecurity. No, they don't. They literally couldn't hack their way out of a paper bag. They couldn't defend themselves against a 2-year-old. So, but there are those people who do know. And when you do, think about the opportunity, right? We know that bad guys are not going to stop using computers to attack people. So there's a tremendous opportunity out there for you in your future. If you're doing it for the money, like, don't bother me. There are a million people that will do it for the money, but there are a lot of people who do it for saving our way of life and protecting us. And by the way, you'll also be very wealthy as a result of your skill set. So when we enable people with the knowledge, the hard to get knowledge that you don't learn from a book, then all of a sudden those people are walking around as the one-eyed man in a kingdom of blind people, and they really just see and know and are able to do things. And that in itself is a very exciting thing. I mean, you know things that most people just don't understand. But if you are, for example, if you're an astronaut, you've been flying around the universe for 20 years, to you landing on a planet or orbiting another star is trivial. But for everyone else, that's just a mystical thing that would never happen. So it really is about getting to know the things from the people who know them, and then most importantly, connecting with it. And once you've done that, you will have a tremendous impact. And this is exactly what Simon is doing. He's really helping people connect with the immediate realities that will be memorable for a very long time. They might be on their deathbed and go, that's Simon and his stupid war games, right? But again, the whole point is, like, they absolutely know and remember, and they understand why it's important and what needs to be done. So it's fantastic what you're doing, Simon. So I know you've got more to say about that.
Thank you very much. It's very kind. From my perspective here, I think that there's two sides. There's two things we need to do. We need to consider the way that we talk about cyber. I think when we communicate in any form, whether we're talking about the attacks that happen inside our own organizations, whether we're talking about attacks that have happened outside, the behaviors that we're expecting of people, we tend to present that as a negative. How many times do we say, don't plug in USB sticks, or don't click on the phishing link? There are myriad behaviors that we are trying to push people away from. If we switch that narrative, we switch the story over and empower and encourage people, exactly like you're saying here, what we want to do is give people the opportunity, the experience, the stories that they can take forward and embed into their lives, because I want to embed it into my life. I don't want to feel rubbish and feel like I'm failing. I want to feel good. And we can only do that through talk. We can only do that by broadcasting that message and presenting it that way. Another little dimension on that side there is about the way that we present the concept of cyber. I'm really fascinated by discourse and the way that we generate language with this, because we still have a habit of slipping into jargon really quickly. We do tend to speak our own language, and that is a horrible barrier for those that have an interest in the general world of cyber, but not cyber language. They've not got that far yet to understand what we're talking about, why there are so many acronyms you could fill 1,000 dictionaries. So we've got to dial it back a bit. We've got to make sure that we control the language to ensure that everything we do is overt. We can communicate this very clearly, very comfortably, and exactly as Brett said, what we're doing isn't actually that hard for the most part. There are simple steps that we can do, simple things that we can do, that we don't need to talk about the technology behind them. We just need to look at the behavior.
Yeah.
As far as the, sorry.
Go ahead, Sam.
As far as the gamification component, because obviously my whole stories and games piece, the gamification is the tool to do this, okay? Because through gamification, you can not only tell the story of the win, but you can live the win. You can have a lived experience of how that win is going to play out. When we see attacks, you don't have that equation. When we see the compromises that are happening today, the things that happen in the Ukraine at the moment, the bad thing has happened. What about the hundreds of wins that happened in the moments beforehand? What about the amount of time that we've carried out defensive action and it's been really successful? That story is absent. So all we experience is the negative. By running the game, by getting people to play that through, by getting people to meet physically, face to face with a member of the Ministry of Defiance, they're finding out that they can beat them. Not just they can, but they've done it 100 times that day. Just because they had a complex password, just because they don't have the same passwords for every single platform, they've already won several times.
Yeah.
They've already done it.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, how could we convince or influence companies that sell cybersecurity software and equipment to present this not as you're going to lose, we're getting hacked all the time, but rather here's a way to win? You know, it's still a marketing tool. It's still it's still a way of selling their product, but we can present it in a positive light. Here's a way we can win. And I mean, how do you think, what's a good message we could send to some of those cyber vendors? Because both Brett and I work with a lot of cybersecurity vendors, and we'd like to influence their marketing. Not that we have much influence, but we can.
Right? Language is king. The way that we talk and present everything is absolutely fundamental. I would strongly lean on positivity. Everything that can be said can be turned negative or positive. It doesn't matter how bad it is, there is always a way of framing that as a positive. So we need to use framing more. I'd be really keen to see novelty. I'd like to see things that stand out, that engage people, because they are fundamentally different. And that works across so many different things. It's so interesting the way that novelty maps across the memory, the way that novelty links in with things like your perceived autonomy in a given situation. So yeah, they're the kind of things that I think that could be really good messages to go into the way that vendors present that information.
Yeah,
fully agree. The language drives the culture, and when the language drives the culture in a positive direction, we will get a positive result. And again, I know I can hear 100 people saying, yeah, but people don't buy on happiness, they buy on fear, right? And so that is a mindset, that's a culture. But the fact is that if you think about it, maybe you should contemplate the idea of selling suits in hell, right? It just, at some point, it loses its luster. It's really boring. It doesn't matter what you wear, you're still in hell. And so when you are creating an environment that's all negative, it really doesn't matter how cool or flashy or neat or friendly or attractive your people are, because eventually it's just blah, nobody cares. But it's very different when you're living in life, and when there's people and vibrancy and beauty around you. It is very easy to say, and these things will enhance or help with that. These are things that will help protect you, and it is much easier to do that. So you don't have to think, I only can sell on fear. If you think that you might want to try some of the positivity, and don't do the whole, I went to one sales call and I said a positive thing and they threw me out. That's not an experience, right? But there are many ways that we can all be working together to drive the culture towards a more positive outlook, because again, you can only sell so many suits in hell before people say, just give me the gray one, right? So
Yeah. So suppose, a company wants to get started with gamification for internal training. They might not have the resources, time, or energy or expertise to build their own custom escape room, as Simon has done, or Brett has put together his cyber range. But they like the concept. They want to get rolling. What's a good way? I'll start with Brett. What's a good way for a company to get started internally with using gamification to dip their toe into it to see if they can improve the overall cybersecurity resilience of their company?
Yeah, certainly engaging with people who've done it, right? There are lots of folks that are out there that are moving towards this space and have had some experience with that. It is one of those things that you can eventually bring in-house when you have the right mindset. And they do not have to be an uber elite nerd to be able to pull this off. I know that you're looking at two amazing elite nerds right now. But the fact is that you don't have to be only us to be successful. And so because of that, you just simply have to bring in some folks to help you get started. And then once your people understand the way and you have the right mindset behind it, it's easy to keep that thing going forward. And then you only bring guys like me and Simon around to help enhance the program a little bit further on an annual basis, for example. So there are a lot of ways to begin, but then we also have these things called cyber ranges, right? So not all cyber ranges are the same. I know Simon will tell you that he's got the enlistment office number, and you can sign up and be a part of his exercises within with the Ministry of Defense. And I'm sure he'd be happy. I don't know if you get any kind of commission on recruitment there, but you should ask for that. But the fact is that you can enlist with services that have these really innovative thinkers. If you think about what Simon's doing, it's an incredibly innovative way to approach a problem in a very effective way, and it has a meaningful impact. Where he's doing it, it has a very meaningful impact very quickly to lots of people's lives. But with corporate America and everybody else, I'm running nonprofit cyber ranges. There's the Tech Data Cyber Range, largest distributor of technology in the world. So the chances are you're connected to somebody that can get you in there. And so there are lots of different ways to do that. You'll find that once you connect with those people who get it, who have this bigger understanding of what's going on, those ideas and thoughts will begin to capture you, and you will be an additive instead of a consumer of just that service.
Yeah, so I think that's great advice, Simon. What would how would you advise a company seeking to change their culture? I mean, acknowledging that you're in government or defense, but still culture is culture and people are people. So how would you advise a large organization seeking to use gamification to change their cybersecurity culture and resilience?
Yeah, I do love that question, by the way, and I do a fair amount of webinars. When people go, how would you fix culture? Just solve that one real quick. Using the gamification thing, right?
My question is, where do you start, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a really important thing, and what I don't want to do is suggest that we shouldn't run out and use some of the incredible services out there, because things like a cyber range is invaluable. And I know in UK defence, for those people who are really engaged in cyber, there is nothing that beats cyber exercising. Being the military version of deployed with your cyber rifle, your keyboard, obviously. That's great. Nothing beats it. But if what we want to do is influence base behaviors, we just want to influence the way that people do this, we need to view gamification a lot more broadly than we do. Something that I constantly come up against whenever I'm trying to lean into our industry base and say, I'd like this service, I'd like to do this. People go, let me whip out my simulator. All right, that's very flash. Fantastic, thank you very much. That's like a sliver of gamification. Let's look left and right of arc, shall we? Because yeah, sure, we've got a platform called Virtual Battlefield Simulator. VBS is incredible. Absolutely incredible model of gamification, because it is effectively a massively multiplayer online role-playing game for service personnel, to which you can plug in full motion simulators in Watcham, so you can fly an Apache round. We've got UAVs flying around inside this. You can carry out cyber operations. We can down a UAV with a cyber operation all inside this virtual battlefield suite. Very clever. Stupidly expensive and impossible to maintain. Its downtime is ridiculous because no one knows how to fix the damn thing. Or we can cycle back all the other way. We can go right back to the beginning. Because for me, one of the most powerful tools that as an immediate manager or as a department head, or even stepping even further back, is exercising. And we interpret exercising, especially in the cyber profession, we often interpret exercising as a set of rules. It's almost like a test, and everything is very, very rigid. And I'm going to lean on something, Brett, you pointed out that we've got fantastic nerds. I am definitely a nerd, because I'm going to lean on an ultimate nerd trope here. Don't view exercising like a test, something you're there to do, that it's a day at work and you have to exercise, you're going to fail. View it like Dungeons and Dragons. It's a story. It's an opportunity to play through something, that when injects happen, when those things go wrong, you don't view it like, oh no, the business continuity plan doesn't hold up, or oh, I haven't got the information. You game your way around it. You find how you would resolve that situation. And the amount of novelty, the amount of interest that comes out of that, and the enthusiasm from playing it like a genuine game is incredibly powerful, because you engage the motivation. What I really like, we did something like this. We run an exercise for the very, very senior leadership in defense, the 4-star community. And we did a scenario for them where there was a compromise, and they had to resolve the compromise, and things were getting quite tense and stressful for this group of people. Very, very senior leaders, not cybersecurity experts, but all very, very well-educated people. The creme of defense. And the way that this exercise resolved itself, the story was, it was an alien invasion. That's what we did. Was something that they could not wrap their head around, that they took them so by surprise. And as soon as we revealed that this is an alien invasion, they were in stitches. And it changed the dynamic of the game entirely. All of a sudden they went from, we need to protect defense, to, well, all right, let's be the hero that saves the world from alien invasion. And they switched over to game mindset instantly.
Yeah.
And the power of that, walking away from that, saying that they'd saved the world from aliens, was unbelievable. It was absolutely incredible, because it wasn't just another exercise, it was a game.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly with that. Now, we just have a few minutes left, but one of the things I do want to ask you about is this. I also work with a man named Arun Vishwanath, who is actually not a cybersecurity person, but a sociologist, and his interest is in what causes people to click on phishing links. In other words, why do people click on, and why do they do it over and over again? And the big thing that he discovered is, despite all of the exercises that companies undertake, the efficacy is usually almost zero of the training effort, because it's basically a check the box compliance effort. Oh yeah, we did the training, but who cares? There's no follow up. There's no measurement after the fact of whether the training actually worked. It's just a registration that it actually took place, not whether it actually worked or not. So Brett, have you done any follow-up or to see how effective any of the training exercises are doing, and whether it's quantifiable or just subjective, and what have you done in the way of follow-up or to see how effective your exercises are with your
so in my non-corporate environments, we have a running cyber warfare going on. So I have people who are learning how to be what are called red teamers or attackers. They're attacking. And I have blue teamers who are defending, they defend. And then I have forensics experts who are trying to investigate. So we have, the attackers usually breach the defenders, which creates the opportunity to investigate. And so all of these people learning against each other in this big war game that's going on is really accelerates people's learning. And so, for example, one of my favorite ranges, they have a remote control DJ. So you can submit the songs you want to play and so forth and so on. So one of the most frequent targets is someone will come in and start trolling the people in the range by playing music that you would not appreciate. And so as a direct result, someone in the blue team will say, all right, somebody's messing with our TJ server, let's go. And then quite literally teams start rallying up and you start seeing this epic battle and you eventually figure out who the attackers are, and then you battle back and forth. The greatest thing about that is all of that is learning. And it's real world because it's human mind versus human mind at all different skill levels. It doesn't get more real world than that. And the greatest thing about that is if you're in the middle of a heat of battle and we say, hey, lunch arrived, you can pause the exercise, everybody goes to their corners, eats their pizza or Chinese food or whatever we have for the day. And then after they're done, the war starts back up again. But everyone remembers and still talks about all the little fun that they had. You remember when they played that song? Oh yeah, I can't believe they were trying to wipe our server, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And as a direct result, it is a wonderful learning environment.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this the webinar, I made a joke about only one of us was an adult here, but I think you can see that that childlike glee with having fun with this stuff that really does matter and engages people and makes a significant difference. It moves the needle much, much more than a bunch of dull slideware and mindless exercises. So I'm getting the signal. I think we're all about to get the hook from Joyce, so I'm going to let her close out the session. So thank you both, by the way, for your just incredible enthusiasm and dedication to this field. I mean, Brett, your story about people your staff hugging people whose lives were saved by cybersecurity. I mean, that really hits home. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. That's why you do it at the end of the day, right? And Simon, your enthusiasm is impossible to miss. So thank you both for your dedication to the craft and also for lending your time to this webinar.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Simon. You're awesome. We got to do more stuff together.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you both.
So Joyce, I think you want to take us home.
Absolutely. Thank you both. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. This was fun. And I always say, if you can't have fun, go home. Why do this if you don't want to? So just a note in closing, please sign up for our ICIT Spring Briefing on April 6th at the Ritz-Carlton, Pentagon City. We thank our sponsors and we thank our speakers, Simon Pavitt, Brett Scott, and our illustrious moderator, Don McLean. Thank you all very much. Have a great day. Live long and prosper.
Thank you, Joyce. Thanks, Simon and Brett.